Hello, good morning. Welcome to our webinar today, Invoice to Insights, Why Your ERP Needs P2P Automation. I'd like to welcome Andrea Hargate, Senior Finance Operations Manager for Blue Wild, and with 18 years experience in managerial leadership roles, primarily in the AP and AR, highly experienced in system implementation, process improvement, stock processing, returns management, and managing a large team. So thank you for joining us, Andrea.
No.
Also with us today is Mark Bradfield. He's part of the listening team of documentation and has been with us for more than 20 years and experienced lots of different customers and lots of different solutions. So without any further ado, let's get started. Firstly, let's start with an overview of finance systems and how the experiences you've had, good or bad, trying to automate processes. Andrea, have you worked with a finance system with no additional P2P automation, as in just in-system functionality? And if so, what were the biggest headaches?
I have. So when I started, before my role at Bloom and Wild, I was at Go Outdoors for 12 years. And when I started Go Outdoors, it was a very small business. They didn't have any automation. It was all very manual. So it was an invoice in, printed off, and then screen-to-screen matching. And as the company grew, Go Outdoors became a huge national company, and we were dealing with, at that point, we were dealing with about 3,000 invoices a week. And because we didn't have any automation, then we ended up getting up to about 15 people in the AP team, which logistically was a nightmare to keep recruiting, finding a desk for those people, you know, the IT elements of it, just the size of the team was becoming unmanageable. So I'd say that was what the biggest headache was. As lovely as they all were as a team, it was difficult to manage, and my job became more people management rather than AP processing manager. So getting automation in, we managed to reduce that team down from 15 right down to, I think we kept a core team of 8. The company carried on growing extensively. We ended up getting up to about 6,000 invoices a week, and we didn't actually increase the team at all. So the biggest headache was kind of team numbers, things like that, and visibility as well of what we were doing. So, you know, printing off all those invoices logistically is very difficult. So yeah, that was probably the biggest headache. And then I went to advanced supply chain, and it was the same again. So kind of left a very automated process and went completely back to manual again, started all over again. So yeah, automation for us, it adds, it just really helps with, you know, all our processing and get through some of those headaches.
Brilliant, thanks. And Mark, do you have any insights working with customers in this sort of situation too? What were the most common pain points when customers started talking about the challenges they have with their processes?
So we're talking about P2P here, so that's purchasing and the invoice processing side of it. So from a purchasing point of view, the main problems were, you know, users weren't raising purchase orders or raising them incorrectly. There was lack of control of the supplier base. That's a common problem, and adherence to procurement rules and the procedures. So you get sort of rogue spending and things of that nature. There's a bit of the Wild West situation when you haven't got things of that nature in place. In terms of invoice processing, the typical things is obviously the manual data entry. There's no automation for that, so it's inefficient and time consuming. You may have, you know, if you are raising purchase orders, you might have manual matching, you know, to adhere to that. If they don't match successfully, you've got to distribute those manually through the business, sending information outside of systems. So there's lack of control and overall visibility of the process. And if you're running non-PO as well, you've got to distribute those out for coding and approval. You know, are the business users coding correctly to the right budget center and so on and so forth. So there's sort of lack of control. If you've got an ERP system as well, giving users access to that can be quite problematic. There might be licensing restrictions, and they might be cost prohibitive to do that. So trying to do things within the ERP system from a process point of view can be restricted there, and they're not particularly intuitive in that way. So they can be complex for the sort of a normal business user who effectively wants to raise a purchase order or approve an invoice, for example. It can be quite daunting to do that in the widest business users outside of finance. So they're the main challenges that people have.
Okay, thanks. And Andrea, what were the top benefits you saw for your team when using the P2P automation system as an operational layer for POs and invoice processing with your ERP.
So as well as reducing the team down and having a much smaller team to manage that can manage a lot more data, a really good P2P automation solution allows your team to really step away from data entry and processing. So a lot of people, when they come into AP, they don't tend to have an ambition to sit and just do data entry. It's not something people get a lot of not necessarily get a lot of enjoyment from or fulfillment from. So adding in a layer of automation and P2P automation gives your AP team the ability to actually offer more to the business. So you get away from that data entry and you move towards more added value things like statement reconciliations, building up supply relationships, reviewing processes. So we're at the moment where I am at Bloom & Wild, we've got this automation in, and we're now doing a huge piece of work on looking at all our payment terms, and we're doing that by letting the AP team got time to analyse actually spend changes, so we can look at a supplier and say, okay, we spent £100,000 with you in 2020, and that jumped to 150,000, 300,000. Now it's £800,000 a year. We'd like to look at terms. So it gives your teams, the AP teams, the time to actually delve into things that are more interesting and become added value teams rather than data entry teams. And not only that as well, having a P2P automation solution, it gives your business like a one-stop shop and one version of the truth. So you can go to one system and you can get out your PO data, your GR&I data, your AP, your payment data. Everything sits in that one umbrella system that's feeds into your ERP, but you can get it all from a system where you've got that reporting, you've got BI, you've got all the lovely things that you need as a business to be able to drive your business forward. It all comes from that one system, which is really good.
Yeah, that sounds great. Mark, same question for you. What do you think the top 3 benefits are? What the P2P automation delivers?
I'm in danger of treading on Andrea's toes here, but and repeating the same thing. But you're looking at increased efficiencies and reduced manual errors, aren't you? That's and that's what Andrea's saying. You're taking that away from the users, and they're doing more value-added tasks. So you're speeding up the process cycle times. So that's where you can start talking to suppliers about terms and so on. You're reducing human errors, so you're not having to deal with backtrack on errors that are made in the process retrospectively. So it improves the accuracy. And it reduces the time-consuming and repetitive tasks, as Andrea said. That nobody wants to be sat there all day entering data. They want to have fulfilment in their role, feel that they contribute, and so on. Cost savings go in line with that. So again, reducing your rogue spending in P2P and unauthorised purchasing. You're getting those better supplier relationships and contract negotiations. So you may be able to consolidate your supplier base as well. So you're not creating a new supplier every 2 minutes. You've got a core base of approved suppliers you can draw from. Again, lower labour costs or transfer of that labour to more value-added tasks, as I've already said. And two, as Andrea said, supporting that strategic growth as they did at Go Outdoors, increasing the volume of invoicing significantly, but not having to increase the team. And over all of that, you've got improved visibility, of course, insight on your spending, your supplier performance and cash flows, adherence to compliance, not only your business process compliance, but legal compliance, HMRC compliance, and so on. And it gives you that better forecasting and budgeting and decision-making platform, if you like, to as through your reporting and analytics of these systems as well. So it all goes hand in hand, really.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And Andrea, how important is that integration with the finance system? Is it important from a P2P perspective that your P2P solution can integrate with other software systems key to the process as well? For instance, a goods delivery system or a payment system. And how does this help you and your team?
Yeah, it's really important that your kind of P2P system can integrate seamlessly with your ERP. The whole point for me of the automated P2P system is that it makes your life easier and reduces the human element of it to a certain extent. So what you want is the systems to do what they do best and talk to each other and feed that information back and forth. Get rid of that human interaction. Your human interaction then becomes the anomalies from that. So your AP team again, they build up their expertise, they build up their kind of their add value, and they are jumping in and just picking out the anomalies and picking out the things that look wrong, but they're not spending that time doing the data entry and moving the data from one system to another. You want the system to do that for you and integrate so that you have trust in that data. Again, one version of the truth, one system, kind of linking with the other system, and that flow of information and it being accurate is vital. Hopefully that answers the question, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, that's brilliant. Mark, we talk about integration all the time, but what does it actually look like from a provider's point of view?
Okay, so as Andrea said, the integration between P2P and ERP is absolutely vital. And there's sort of three main areas, if you like, that it covers. So you've got shared reference data that's needed from the ERP system. So vendor master data, chart of accounts, tax codes, rates, so on and so forth. So that's needed in the P2P system to drive the creation, the processing and the validation of purchase orders, and obviously the corresponding invoices when they're received. So that's one element of it. Then you have the transaction interface, which is obviously the registration or the posting of that information back to the ERP system for payment. And then a third one, which is optional, but certainly very common and really draws the two together, is integrated display. So this is being able to pass the data into the finance system, the ERP system, but within an inquiry screen, be able to display the invoice that's held within the P2P system. So again, having that single version of the truth that Andrea refers to. So any P2P solution provider like Documation should have a toolkit really of standard integration methods to integrate the P2P and ERP. So they vary and very much driven a lot of the time by the ERP system itself and what capabilities that has in terms of the integration. So you have things like APIs, data transfer by flat files still. It's quite old-fashioned, if you like, but they're still out there. Database to database and using middleware between the systems, or a combination of all of those to get the best fit, both technically and financially, if you like, between those two systems. And a good provider should work with their customer to identify and select the most appropriate integration method based on those two factors, really technically and financially, what is best for them to process documents, whether or not that be real time or near time or whatever it might be. So because the data that differs depending on what data you're processing. And it goes back to something Andrea said a moment ago as well. A good integration means that the users themselves are not aware of that integration. They don't care how it happens, it just does. So it doesn't impact on their processing or impede on their processes at all. Their working practices are this, and how it gets to the finance system and vice versa, it doesn't matter to them, and it shouldn't matter to them.
Yeah, you have to trust it though as well, don't you? So you have to, you need a solution that you can trust. Because you want, as you exactly said, Mark, you want to be able to just go in and go, doesn't matter where it came from, I know that it's come from the right source and I know it's correct. So you can go in and that opens up for anyone in the business to be able to access that as well. So you can give people access and they know that data is right. They don't have to second guess that data. It's right. Yeah.
Great for reporting and all sorts. Yeah, absolutely. So Andrea, what's been your experience with integrated automation? Are they really integrated, or are you still using spreadsheets as a workaround? What's really important to you?
My ideal would be to try and completely eliminate spreadsheets. Now, spreadsheets will always be a feature everywhere. Sorry, my dog is going mental, so I'm going to shut this door. Spreadsheets will always be a feature, but you want the spreadsheet kind of and manual things to be things that you want to analyze after the event, not part of your workflow and your day-to-day. So when I'm using spreadsheets, I want to be able to just extract that data, trust in the data, and I want to be able to analyze it within a spreadsheet and then come to my own conclusions, but I want that data to be right. So when we're talking about kind of integration, you do really want it to be integrated. So where at Bloom & Wild now, we have a partially integrated system. We are missing some workflow capabilities. So we're having to do manual workarounds, which is extracting the data that are in query, adding them to a spreadsheet, which adds in that layer of complexity. It adds in that layer of human element again where you've got to rely on somebody typing the data in to make it correct. So what I would, my preference and what's important to me is that your P2P solution, it doesn't just fulfill the brief of being good for one department or one area of a business. It's got to work for every department. So it's got to have workflows, it's got to have the BI, it's got to have access, it's got to have dashboarding, you know, everything that eliminates all those manual bits like the spreadsheet controls, because that's what you don't want. You don't want the spreadsheet to be a control. You want the system to be a control and the spreadsheet to be able to then extract that control so you can look at it.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thanks. And Mark, finally from you, why do you think ERPs and finance systems can hinder rather than help the P2P process? And if a company is looking for an automation solution, where should they start?
So where they hinder, hinder's a word there, isn't it? So an ERP system is designed to centralise and connect core business operations. So you've got finance, HR, supply chain, sales. They're all in that system. You know, that's what it's designed to do. But they can lack the specialised functionality of a P2P solution. You know, that has been designed and built and implemented to optimise the procurement and AP process. So the ERP system hasn't. It's a Goliath system, isn't it, if you like, where the P2P is specialised. So in terms of procurement, a P2P system should be intuitive and support users to make it easy to raise purchase orders, have catalogues and budget validation and contract compliance and things of that nature, and make it intuitive to receipt goods as well. The biggest area in a business is receipting. In my experience, where a process falls is where goods aren't receipted. So if you make it intuitive to do that, that will improve your processing and your straight through process as well. In terms of the invoice processing, you should have it's designed for touchless invoice processing, what we call a straight through process. So it's got AI and machine learning and data capture, for example, automated 2- and 3-way matching, even 4-way matching. It's got all those compliance and controls within the workflow, notifications, reporting, specifically for that process to even process e-invoicing, which is coming online everywhere at the moment as well, and having that automated integration to support that. And that, as Andrea said, to have the confidence in the system to know that's a single version of the truth. In terms of where do you start? It can be a daunting task thinking about this, you know. So it's best to have small manageable tasks. It's a bit like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat an elephant by creating elephant burgers, and you eat a burger at a time. Don't go for the whole elephant. So that's what you break it down into tasks. Review your current processes, not to automate them, not so you can say, okay, that's what our process does, so we must automate that process. It's looking at it to say, okay, what works well, what doesn't work so well. What are my objectives of automating the process? What's the scope of that? What are my requirements? And what am I looking to address? So you can start looking at potential quick wins in a process to start addressing those, and then build out from there to go to a full P2P solution if you want to start smaller. So it's doing that work, so you can then go out to the business, start a business case, engage with your stakeholders. And so you start to understand what the drivers are behind it, the justifications and so on, and then you can start looking at an automation or P2P provider, having that information available to you, so you know you're going in with your eyes open and you know what you're looking to achieve. So when you get to the end of the process and your P2P solution is in place, you can measure the performance of that solution against what your objectives were at the start. And that's really important to have those measurable objectives at the beginning, your KPIs, so you can measure that. So that's what I would suggest you do. And so selecting the right solution and the partner, particularly the solution partner, is absolutely key to the success of these types of solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would add to that as well and say, sometimes I know when I've looked at bringing in kind of P2P, I've done it a few times where I've worked in previous roles, and it can seem like an overwhelming task, and it can seem like you try and fix every single issue immediately as well, which then makes the project huge. And I would advocate that, you know, you look at your main issues in the company, what we want to fix right now. Don't try and fix everything in one go. Get a solution in that has all those things that you can fix, but you can do it over time as well. So getting a really good solution in that actually has those abilities and those key functionality that you might need in the long term, but not necessarily think about it as like a big project right now, because it's something we're looking at that at Bloom and Wild at the moment. So we're looking at what we've got, and the solution that the company brought in before I joined, they brought in a solution that just fixes the problems right now. But actually, the company's got growth plans, and in a year's, 2 years time, I'm already looking, thinking this won't work for us in 2 years' time. So you've got to be prepared for kind of what do I need to fix right now, but also how does that look in 2, 3, 5 years?
How's it going to grow with you? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you both. That's been really insightful. I've learned some bits, so thank you. I think the sort of overarching message is ERPs are brilliant for businesses, and they control all areas of the business. But P2P is fairly specialist, and what you really need is something that works for you in the P2P area, not trying to make the ERP a P2P specific area. And the clunkiness and the configuration around trying to make your ERP do what a P2P solution can do is just not feasible. So as long as you get the full integration, then it really does change your life.
Best of both worlds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you again. Thank you both for joining us. There'll be another webinar in approximately 6 weeks' time. Watch our LinkedIn to find out what that might be. And thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Mark. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.